Hi there! Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Emily Koh, and I'm a composer and double bass player from Singapore who is currently based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. In my day-to-day work life, I am a composer and also composition professor at the University of Georgia's Hugh Hodgson School of Music. Recently, over the summer, I released an album titled Wordplays, Microtonal Works for Saxophones. This is found on Innova Recordings, which is the independent recording label of the American Composers Forum. This is the album. So today we're going to listen to 3 works from this album, and the 3 works are titled Homonym, Heteronym, and Cryptonym, all performed by the New York-based New Thread Quartet. You can also listen to the entire album or buy the album on the Innova website, and it has links to Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever else you find your music. So I hope that after today's listening experience that more people would listen to some of the other works that we're not listening to in today's experience. If you are tuning in live for this video premiere, I really encourage you to ask questions, share your thoughts, comments, and interact with me through the live chats. I'm very excited that we can share music and communicate in this new way, such as live chats, which are increasingly becoming more commonplace. It really brings us all slightly closer to one another. So without further ado, let's jump into listening to music rather than hearing me talk a little bit more. The first work I want to play for you is called Homonym. Homonym was commissioned by and written for the Amigo Saxophone Collective at the instigation of a really good friend of mine, saxophonist Leslie Wong. Some of you might know him. This work was written in 2013, and the Amigo Quartet and several other quartets have really brought this piece from, Singapore to many, many different parts of the world. It's been played in Macau, Belgium, and various parts of the US, such as Minneapolis, Boston, and Albuquerque. So homonyms are 2 words that have the same pronunciation, but have different meanings. When I was composing homonym, one of the Singlish homonyms that I often think of is "or," which we often use as a grunt of acknowledgement in Singlish, and the word "or," which is a function word to indicate some sort of alternative in English. To me, they sound very, very similar, but they have completely different meanings. So true to the definition of the word homonym, I used many similar sounding musical materials, which meanings change when you put them or when I put them in different musical contexts. So now let's take a listen to my work, Homonym. Welcome back. You just listened to my work Homonym for Saxophone Quartet. Before we listen to the next work, I want to share a little bit about my album, Wordplays, Microtonal Works for Saxophones. There are 5 works in this album, all inspired by similarly named literary technique, which is playing with words, in which witty word use becomes the subject of the work. The 3 quartets, as can be heard today, take inspiration through the meanings of their titles themselves. And these 5 works on this album are all microtonal And microtonal basically means using all the pitches that we can find that are in between the piano keys that we hear on a piano keyboard. So without further ado, the next work we will listen to is Heteronym, which is written for Prism Quartet in 2016. Heteronyms are words that are spelled similarly, but have completely different sounds and pronunciations and meanings. One of the heteronyms that I find relatable to me when I was writing this work is the heteronym le in Chinese or le in Singlish. They are spelled very similarly, le, but have different sounds, different pronunciations, and also mean slightly different things. One might realize that heteronym is a very similar word itself to homonym. And because of that, I started thinking of these two quartets as being slightly connected to one another. So the last note in the baritone saxophone that we hear in homonym is the exact same note in the baritone saxophone that we hear starting heteronym. And heteronym starts kind of in a slow kind of soloistic way as well, just to expand on that one note before we dive into the work itself. So without further ado, I think I would say that the motives in heteronym look very similarly on the score when written out, but because of different techniques used, they sound slightly differently, and obviously when put into different musical contexts again, mean slightly different things. So again, here is heteronym. Enjoy. The work you just heard was my quartet heteronym for saxophones. The three saxophone quartets you hear today were recorded by New Thread Quartet in December 2020 in New York City in an almost 10-hour-long recording session. Due to the pandemic, I had to tune in online to the recording session while the quartet and the engineer were in the studio. This was mainly for safety reasons because it was still during the middle of a pandemic. We were supposed to record this quartet in April of 2020 when I was in residence at the Copeland House, but that did not happen because of coronavirus. So we had to postpone the recording session 2 or 3 more times before we finally recorded in December 2020. And it was such a humbling experience because all four of these very talented and dedicated musicians, Jonathan Halting Cohen on saxophone, soprano saxophone, Kristen McKeon on alto saxophone, Aaron Rogers on tenor saxophone, and Zach Hershen on baritone saxophone, all of them had to overcome many, many COVID tests, travel restrictions, and having to form a pod to rehearse and record these three works. So I'm really, really fortunate and thankful that despite all the various setbacks that we had to face due to the coronavirus, that we eventually did manage to come together and bring these works to life. So thank you very much, New Thread Quartet. I really, really enjoyed working with you all. And also thank you so much for your sacrifices for this. The last work we're going to play today for the listening experience is Cryptonym, commissioned by New Thread Quartet in 2018. Cryptonyms are secret words whose real meanings are only known by the few people in the know. So cryptonyms are very special to me because when I was growing up, my mom and her kids had a cryptonym that was used in our family. And so the cryptonym was Thunderstorm, which was code for us kids to hide when our dad comes home for work after having a really bad day at work. So in this work, there are many, many extended techniques used, such as using half air, noisy slap tongues, or long notes played in a very broken and uneven tone that is used to describe and obscure lines and different phrases in the work. So this allows the meanings of the works and the meanings of the lines to be a little bit hidden from most people. But as the work progresses, it becomes clearer and clearer what some of these lines and melodies may mean. So this is my work, Cryptonym, and is the last work that we're going to listen to in today's listening experience. Enjoy. You just listened to Cryptonym for Saxophone Quartet, and Cryptonym is my latest saxophone quartet. Thank you so much for sticking around with me throughout the listening experience. I hope you had a good time and have listened to something that you wouldn't otherwise have listened to. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I encourage you to listen to the two other works, the opening and closing works of my album Wordplays, on Spotify, on Apple Music, wherever you find your music, because they expand the idea of playing with words in completely different directions. The opening work is called Meditation, and it is for solo baritone saxophone performed by Philipp Staudlin. And the closing work is actually a collaborative work between me, saxophonist Noah Evan, and artist Michiko Saeki. And it's called Blocked Orders for solo soprano saxophone, video, and electronics. And this is performed by Noah Evan. These two works are named with neologisms, which are newly invented words that have special symbols inside the word so that each word can be pronounced or read in a different way. So blocked orders could be read as blocked borders or locked orders, and meditation could also be read as mediation. This gives these two words and these two pieces slightly different meanings depending on how you read the title and interpret the music. So I hope you go listen to these two works as well as the rest of the album. All three works that you heard today in today's listening experience is performed by New Thread Quartet and recorded by Jeremy Tressler of Dreamflower Acoustic. I also have to thank Jason Rogers, who has listened to every single track, every single take, every single edit for this entire CD project with me, and also the supporters of this project, namely the National Arts Council of Singapore, the Willson Center for Humanities and the Arts, MacDowell, and the McKnight Foundation. Thank you all so much for supporting my CD project, and I look forward to writing more music and putting it out there for more enjoyment to everyone. Thank you so much and have a good day.